System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' inner city left.
This is the Inner City Left broadcast. Today is Thursday, June 11th. I'm Amin TMK alongside Amoja, Little Tanky Summer. Amoja, hello. Happy Thursday. How are you doing?
Man, still floating off our amazing guest, Miss Vanessa Torres. That was, if y'all didn't see the last podcast, run back to that, man. She's going to break down the South American situation really in a way that just goes beyond anything that you think you might have known, man. So I'm still floating, man. How you doing?
So much game when you have talented people around you. And again, El Martillo Press, so many great writers and so many great writers that are, leftists, real leftists, not pretend artists, leftists, real leftists. And we love to see that. I'm excited because we have a special guest coming on next week, one of our biggest guests. We're going to announce that at the end of the show. So stay towards the end and, we'll drop what I think is probably our biggest guest so far. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I mean, let's get into the real deal, peacetime, the hot ceasefire, the Israeli ceasefires, that are ceasefires except where they're wars are actually still happening.
Hot ceasefire has gotta be that's gotta be the word of the year, right? Remember how they used to do the word? That's gotta be it's a hot ceasefire. Like, I smack the shit out of you sometimes. Sometimes you smack the shit out of me. But we're not really fighting.
But we don't have the fists bowed up. It's not closed.
It's power smack. It's power ceasefire. You know what I'm saying?
Power slap. Yeah. So yeah, that's what now that's over. So no more Mr. Nice Person. No more none of that. It's on. So this is earlier today. Donald Trump, from his Truth Social thing, the United States will be hitting Iran, parentheses, whose Navy, Air Force, radar, anti-aircraft, and other forms of defense together with most of its offensive capabilities are gone, in all capital, very hard tonight. At some point in the not too distant future, we will be taking Kharg Island and other infrastructure points, and assume total control of the oil and gas markets, much like we have with Venezuela, which is working out brilliantly for both Venezuela and the United States of America. Thank you for your attention to this matter, Donald J. Trump. Now, before you jump in, he was on Fox a little bit earlier. And there's a little theme, and I'm going to see if you can catch the theme with what's going on here. So this is Trump a little bit earlier today on Fox.
Well, that's been, Brian knows that. I spoke to him a long time ago. Lawrence knows it. I spoke to him a long time ago. I said my preference would be that. I don't know that America has the stomach for it, to be honest with you. You're going to make a fortune. But I don't know that America has the stomach. I think they'd like to see us come home. But we did it with Venezuela. Venezuela's worked out great for everybody. We've taken millions and millions of barrels of oil out of Venezuela. We've brought them to Houston and various other places, Louisiana. We're refineries that we have that are incredible. They're going 24 hours a day, making a fortune. And, I like that in this case, too. But I'm not sure that America has a long time. It's a little longer process, something that's a guarantee if I want to do it.
Mr. President,
but I'm not sure the country has the appetite for it. Does that make sense to you?
I understand where
you're... As good as it is. By the way, as good as it is, that's always been my number one thing. But as good as it is, I'm not sure the country has the appetite for it, and that's okay. I understand that.
I mean, would you...
Your thoughts, feelings, what did you gain from this? What did you glean from this?
Well, you know what I'm saying? Don't let any of the leftists that are still deluding themselves about Venezuela's sovereignty hear that, as he gloats about gutting the country from millions of barrels of oil, saying that we're making a fortune. Are the Venezuelans making a fortune? Right? No, they're not. They're being plundered. And he's saying that he wants to do the same thing to Iran. So why would they want to do that? So That's the first part of that I'm drawn to. The second part of it is when he says Americans don't have the stomach for it. Did he have the stomach for it? He didn't go to Vietnam. He came up with his bone spurs and all of his magical deferments, 6 deferments to not go to Vietnam. And then he's like, well, we could get it done in Iran, but Americans don't have a stomach for it. So he's saying the country don't have a heart for blood, but in a dismissive way, right? Because our Americans, like, I think about the game of conquest and how it was been sold throughout history. The Spanish told the conquistadors, look, you're going to go to the New World and you're going to have to do some things that you're going to have to confess your sins to. Luckily, we have a relationship with the Catholic Church, so do whatever you need to do. We'll set up this encomienda, and it'll be God. Do it for the sake of bringing God to these people. Do it for the glory of your name, which will live forever. And do it for the gold, right? God, glory, and gold. That's how it was sold to the conquistadors. To the Americans, it's just a matter of guts. You don't have the stomach for it. Well, who's going to be making a fortune? Is it the Americans that go? Of course not. Maybe if you become, live long enough in the military to get an area of expertise, you might be able to become a mercenary and go work for like Eric Prance or one of those type of dudes, or maybe do personal security for one of these billionaires where you can make a good living, but you're not going to make a fortune, right? Who's making a fortune? Only the oligarch class. But this is a class that their kids are never in the military. You know what I'm saying? So when he's talking about they don't got the stomach for it, he's saying stomach because it'd be huge casualties. Is it possible for the United States to take Kharg Island? Sure. There's enough technology at the end of the day. If you wanted to, kick out all the stops and surprise everybody and, drop in one of these divisions, 82nd Airborne or something like that, they could land. Sure, they could land, and maybe they could hold it. I think it's improbable. I think it would take a number of soldiers to storm it that would not be palatable. And this is what Trump is talking about, right? They ain't got the stomach for it. Because he's telling you, you're going to lose not hundreds, not thousands, but maybe tens of thousands of troops to do this. And you'll take it. And you'll put up an American flag, just like the Ukrainians do. And then the next day, everybody's probably going to get droned or hit with freaking conventional artillery, which, by the way, Kharg is in the way of artillery, just conventional, right? God forbid they choose to use any of their short to medium range missiles, right? So could Americans take it? Possibly, yes, at an incredible cost. And then what's going to happen? Exactly what happens in Ukraine. The next day, the quote-unquote bad guys are going to drone the place. They're going to artillery the place. They're going to bomb the place. They're going to missile the place. And then you're going to lose all of those men. And they're going to take it back in a very short order. Is it possible to take it? Yes. Is it possible to hold it? I don't think so. I just don't think so. I just don't understand what capability they would have that would make them impervious to attacks that are already happening to American bases all around the region. So, they call this in Ukraine a flag flick, right? And it's this thing where you risk all of these soldiers for a photo op to throw up the Ukrainian flag. And then, a day or two later, the Russians come by, they storm the area, they take it all back, and they take down the flag, but they know that the American propaganda machine is so much better that all you're ever going to hear about is the flag went up. You're not going to hear about when the flag went down. That's what happens in Ukraine. That's why people like these writers at the New York Times are still talking about, oh, it's a stalemate in Ukraine, because they have all of these videos of these flag flicks where these people have sacrificed so many lives just for a photo op. And then the next day they're dead and they've lost that land again.
Earlier today, Speaker of the Parliament of Iran, Mohammad Ghalibaf, wrong strategies and impulsive decisions will reset the entire board for the worse, explode energy infrastructure and markets, and create an endless quagmire that you will be stuck in for years. You will see a different Iran. And we already know, or maybe you can elaborate a little bit further, because there has been some other things that have been happening. Now, I'm going to start with this, because I just like to start with the human aspect. Excuse me. Iran says 20,000 people left without water after U.S. hits reservoir tanks. Again, Americans hitting civilian infrastructure. This is, there's just been this debate about Israel and the tail wagging the dog and all of those things. This is the United States. This is how they operate. They hit civilian targets. When we talk about Ukraine, which is backed by the United States, the West, of course, but the United States mainly, they hit civilian targets because that's what the United States and the West does. Now, Iran is announcing the full closure of the Strait of Hormuz. No oil tankers, no commercial shipping. Any vessel entering will be targeted. Now, one of the most critical oil routes is now effectively shut. There is now kind of this back and forth. It's open, it's closed. I think CENTCOM earlier today said that the strait is open. We haven't talked about this either, but there's been reports that an F-35 was hit, or multiple were hit while on a Jordanian base or infrastructure of that nature. So it looks like the war is back on. It looks like it's popping off. Can you tell us more about any of those things? And yeah, I mean, what's next here?
I mean, the reality is, right, this is why when we talk about these figures, which, by the way, 108 billion, $899,150,000 so far as of this moment has been spent, right? This is what we're talking about. And it's still, again, these numbers do not include the losses. They just talk about the operational cost.
Disgusting.
The operational cost. That's what it costs. War is fucking expensive. This is why you used to, back in the day, governments would issue war bonds because you'd have to take special loans out for these kind of things. Nowadays you just add it as part of the port that just gets passed through. This is why we have $1 trillion, military budget. That still, even with all of that money, can't pass audits. But like the rumors that you're saying, yeah, they're all around. And again, right? These are not magical facts that we come up with. Most of this stuff is stuff that if you track things like open source intelligence, you can find, right? It's just the kind of stuff that even though it's out there in the world on the internet for anybody that follows this kind of stuff, you're not going to see this on CNN, right? Because Barry Weiss owns that. You're not going to see this on Fox News. You're not going to see this on any of the mainstream news because the same oligarchs have the same investments in the empire. And they utilize the government as that media. The government does their bidding, and that's the whole point of it. But like alternative media has this stuff. The Cradle, for example, an informed military source has disclosed to Fars news agency details about a complex Iranian intelligence operational effort preceding the early Thursday attacks on several U.S. military bases in the region. And they're alleging that up to 12 F-35s were hit. Like, these are the kind of things where we're never going to find out, specifically from our government, what happens. And again, this is just the kind of difference between the ways that even the Russians and the Ukrainians engage themselves, because it's so much easier to find out, what are the actual losses. When it comes to the Americans and the Israelis, you never get honest numbers. The Iranians, for example, the same parliament member that you quoted earlier, has alleged that up to 500 Americans have already died in this conflict. But the official answer from the president is only 12 Americans and like 580 were injured. What's the nature of those injuries? How, like, so we're in a place
Ukraine, where
right.
where they're like, oh yeah, we've lost 40,000 people. Well, actually, it's probably close to 2 million. Or how about those brave IDF members in Gaza that fell out of a tree? Oh no, this is what they do. They're fighting this information war that says we can't lose people. And I think you mentioned it perfectly when we heard Trump on Fox News, when he's talking about the stomach for it. There's only one thing that means: the loss of American lives. Yep.
People dying, right? And that's where, like, again, you have to understand, so far, much of this war has been an aerial war. Like, when they're talking about the Black Hawk, not the Black Hawk, but the Apache that got shot, right? That goes in line with what CENTCOM is saying, is they've been trying to escort ships through the Hormuz. That was supposed to be a helicopter, according to the conversations, right? That was providing escort for a cargo ship coming across. And it came under fire from the Iranians, So that's the story that's out there. The Iranians still dispute this. And again, they're going to do their own truth and not truth. At the end of the day, no one knows the truth of these things, but we know that it has become a casus belli that allowed them to go back to open hostilities. The United States has attacked not just, like you said, the water distribution, but like some military targets that they've hit. They've hit UAV processing plants. They've hit radar systems. They've hit air defense. They attacked all of this. They used 49 Tomahawks within the last 48 hours. That is an extraordinary amount of firepower. You know what I'm saying? But those type of things are demanding responses. And again, the fact that when that happened, Iran did not shell up, and Iran immediately attacked the American forces in Kuwait, immediately attacked the American forces in Bahrain. There are reports that the Saudi air base was hit, although the Iranians continue to deny that, right? So, like, one way or the other, you may or may not even have other players. I think another thing that's really interesting about the way that this campaign is being organized is, if you'll remember at the start of the week, the Americans were saying, we're not involved. This is just the Israelis, right? This reminds me of the Roman battle of Cannae, right? With Hannibal. Because what you would have is with the Roman system of war, there would be multiple commanders out there, because there was so much prestige in winning wars in Rome. Like, that's how you really rose to become a person that could go to the Roman Senate. And so, because it was an expectation that the Carthaginians would be easy, right? They split the duties between these two different commanders. And on one day, there would be this commander that had certain tendencies. On the next day, there would be a commander that had very different tendencies, right? But at the end of the day, it's still just one Roman army, right? So, like, first the Israelis attack, right, on day one, and then they say that we're satisfied. And then the next day, the Americans have their casus belli, and now they're attacking, and they have their own style, right? And here you are as the Iranians, technically they're two different opponents, although coordination is still happening through all the same places. Like, even when the Americans are saying they're not involved, the American Air Force is providing logistic support to the Israelis, flying, AWACS, they're flying refueling missions, right? They're just not the ones that are technically releasing the standoff munitions. You see, and then on the second day, then now the Americans attack. And they're still getting logistics and ISR information from the Israelis. And so it's two different armies, but they're tied at the hips, which is why it's so interesting that everybody now is like, oh, there's this bill that's going to go through. Israel has been part of the Five Eyes intelligence network for more than a decade. So any piece of intel that the Americans have, the Israelis have, the French have, the British have, and the Canadians have, it's all shared as one big, great treasure trove of intelligence. And so it's for more than a decade, it's been very difficult to say where the American response ends and where the Israeli response begins, especially when you consider they're using the same munitions. They have the same contracts. They're using the same weapons. Israel has F-35s. Only one country in the world makes F-35s. The Americans are also using F-35s, And the last wrinkle in all of this is a good number of these soldiers have dual citizenship. You have an Israeli citizenship and you also have an American citizenship. If you're in both militaries, is an Israeli attack or is it an American attack? It's impossible to determine.
I think it's just, again, like I mentioned, the helicopters that are shot down. And I think it's just a difficult situation because there are so many parts of the fogs of war and there's so many parts of, dealing with the propaganda, especially here in the United States. It's so bad all the time that you can never really figure out what is the truth and what isn't. And, I think we still have to remember that at the end of the day, the biggest issues or some of the biggest issues is the fact that Israel still wants to continue to move into Lebanon, that the United States can't give in to this request for Iran's money back, which it is their money, by the way, and easing sanctions and things like this. And this would go such a long way into ending hostilities, but it can't for many reasons. And the escalation continues. Now go ahead. Were you about to say something?
Well, I think that is a fascinating point, right? Like, not only is that one of the non-starters in the negotiation, because the Iranians are saying, we're not going to do anything until you give us back our frozen assets. And Trump has made it such a point now Obama gave them 747s full of cash, just cash, never saying, well, this was actually Iranian money. We froze it. It was stuck in American banks and we simply returned to them what was already their own, right? He's made this such a point now that when you combine this with other things like, I'm not going to be bringing wars, blah, right? It's just almost one lie too many, but it goes to his own personal ego of never giving the money back. He's bragging about, we're stealing millions of barrels of Iranian oil. We're stealing millions of barrels of Venezuelan oil. For him, that's like paying taxes. You never give the money back.
He said that about Syria too.
Right.
Like, there's not even a thing. Like first term, he was saying, we're in the Syria. We're going there for the oil. What? And again, it's just sort of like that at the blatant. And again, that's why a lot of people and the whole, not to bring the Noah Kings thing up, but it's a large population of people that just their imperialism done with a little bit of class.
Right.
Just be more politeness. Imperialism. And that's also not useful, So I think that's another reason why people hate Trump. I'm not a part of the Trump derangement syndrome. I know people will be like, oh, Trump, it is what it is, I think we can all come together and understand that Trump is a bad person and a lot of bad things are going to happen. I hope, that the people can see through the fact of, I always say Donald Biden, because when it comes to major geopolitical issues of today, what
within
really
the last 30 hours, within the last 24 hours, 30 Lebanese people have been killed by the Israelis. In what way would that have fundamentally changed with the Democratic president?
With Kamala Harris, nothing. Not anything. You would
I
just
mean,
have a different rhetoric surrounding it.
you had her vice presidential candidate, Waltz, straight up saying, Israel may have to expand, which is code for the Greater Israel Project, right? Like these are the ways where we have to be more intelligent in the ways that we interrogate what we're talking about, because you cannot on any level pretend to be a person that cares about human rights if you're willing to sacrifice the rights of others to gain your freedom. That's not what a progressive person does. It's not the Palestinian issue. If you're willing to overlook the genocide or the war crimes that are being committed against people of color anywhere in the world, that's the way you bring yourself into complicity. For me, it's a no for me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's not going to change, and most likely, and we're going to see how this escalates. Again, this is the West against the global South. They're squeezing on Cuba. They're squeezing on Venezuela. They're squeezing on Bolivia. They're squeezing on Colombia, and they're squeezing in Argentina and still in Brazil, where I think a lot of things could change if the United States did not just have sort of that Monroe Doctrine, grasp. At any moment we'll try to coup you, or we're actively trying to coup you. It's a ceasefire, but it's a hot ceasefire.
Whoever we want.
And again, to your point, and that was the point I was trying to make as well, that the Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro being kidnapped, and not just kidnapped / abducted with him and his wife, by the way, just another reminder on that. Doesn't seem like there's a big uproar about it in Venezuela, or at least in terms of Delcy and her surrounding cat and all. Looks like everything is just kind of fine. And that has really emboldened Trump and really kind of, made it more dangerous for everyone else. But again, I don't want to put too much pressure in Venezuela. I understand what they're going through. And at the end of the day, this is about the United States. Look, man, do you have any other thoughts? You want to talk about our special guest? Can we bring it up?
You should get into it, man.
All right, guys. You know this person. You probably love this person. Actress, influencer. They're doing an incredible campaign right now with some of the biggest leftists on Instagram. And that's going to be Amanda Seales, everybody. Amanda Seales is going to be on talking a little politics with us, talking about their upcoming album. And, as artists, we both make music. We're both poets as well. Always talking about getting Amoja's book. You need to go out and get that. But we're going to be able to kind of hang out with her a little bit and just vibe. And, like I said, talk a little politics, talk a little music. And I'm excited. Shout out to Amanda. And, I hope you guys enjoy.
It's been a hot minute since we hit y'all with an inner city left vibe. So we back on that, you know what I'm saying? Because the culture is everything. We give you the geopolitics because you have to know what's going on in the world. But also the culture is internal, and if we're not creating, a better world, then all we can do is trumpet the views of a world that already exists. And creating a better world, it often starts with imagination. And that's why we always have a lot of love for artists. It starts with the people that can imagine a better world, and artists are often great representatives of that. So we're going to be bringing y'all something special, and that's what's up, man. Inner City Left.
Yeah, so let's with that, man, let's wrap this thing up. We're available everywhere you find podcasts: Apple, Spotify, Pocket Cast, Overcast, Pocket Watch, Overwatch. I don't know. If you got a podcast platform that you utilize, we're probably on there. So subscribe to the RSS feed. InnerCityLeft.com. We teased the merch a little earlier. More merchandise on the way. So if you want to be looked at like a real leftist, like a real tanky, you saw the free Maduro hat I had on yesterday. That will be available. Some little tanky merchandise, some Inner City Left merchandise. Patreon.com/InnerCityLeft. Our patrons, like guys, I love you guys like cook food. You're the real heroes. And Fables, Foibles, Other American Sins, as previously mentioned. Get that for your library. And I'm excited for Amanda next week, next Tuesday, this upcoming Tuesday. But that's not where we're going to stop. We have more guests on the way, and we want to continue to bring everyone the geopolitics that they need and the culture from the leftist perspective, a socialist perspective, a tanky perspective, if you will. Anyway, what do we miss? What are some final thoughts you have for today, Tanky, as we get ready to slide out on this Thursday?
Man, just remember, I mean, this is what I'm saying. Like, the intensity of this conflict is going to continue to escalate. We are fastly approaching the end of the strategic reserve, right, as far as petroleum goes. And when it happens, you're not going to be able to hide the gas prices anymore. They're not going to go up gradually. They're going to go up really big. So, prepare in the ways that you can. If you already have yourself good, because a lot of people, when you're talking about leftists, they're working on their off the grid, life, trying to do those things. You've got your generators. That means you need to be getting your fuel as soon as you can to keep yourself in those positions to win. Because I think that's something that we just take for granted in America. We're so energy rich, to the point that for a long time we've put ourselves in a position to look like energy exporters. But in a pinch, all that's going to have to come home. And as much as we use, it's more than what we make. And even though we make more than anyone else, we just take it for granted, and you can't do it. You're muted, good sir.
Thank you. You were saying some good stuff, so I must have just totally forgot. But yeah, I mean, we have no we don't subsidize any of our energy, man, with renewables. And what's so crazy, man, is these data centers, bro. And we've talked about them, and we're going to talk about them some more. Maybe we'll have Muscle one and talk more about that. But man, the AI and data centers, man, it's just making everything else so much more complicated. And it's to really let you know that at the end of the day, it's not about creating energy, and it's about dominating energy. It's about controlling the markets of energy, because these data centers, man, they're very dangerous. But anyway, neither here nor there. For Amoja Little Tanky Summer, I'm Amin TMK. This is the Inner City Left broadcast. Peace.
System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' Inner City Left.